just about as long as it is possible for any documents to be.
They want to go ahead and they want to take this idea and talk about that as if it's real, as if that's what's real.
This is insane. Look at this vastness.
Hello, and welcome to the Line Go Show, August 11th, 2013. And it's my birthday, just to note. And also, today's topic is atheism in the public domain, or the public, I guess. And today we have Griffin, Realist Analyst, Aaron, and Max. So I guess that's a tag team. And DPR Jones, and Bionic Dance. You can talk.
Hello, everybody. You'll have to forgive me for not appearing. I'm having camera troubles. I'll try to get them sorted before the end of the show, as long as it doesn't involve rebooting.
Okay. If I remember correctly, a few years ago, they did a survey that atheists are the most distrusted group in America, right?
Yeah.
Is that somewhere to start, Aaron?
Okay.
So why are we the most distrusted group in America?
That I couldn't tell you. We're the only ones that actually base our perspective on anything. Hold on. I have to go catch that. You have to correct that question to somebody else.
Personally, I think it's because we're an unknown quantity. If someone is religious, that comes with like rules and ways to live your life. And with atheism, they realize that they have to, and so do we, improvise. I'm sure that's part of it anyway.
Griffin, what's your take, since you're a foreign entity?
It's a strange concept to me, because where I'm from, being an atheist is fine. I mean, take for example our government. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day when I was planning a video. I was like, have we ever had a theist, because we have a prime minister instead of a president, have we ever had a prime minister as an out there, hey, I'm a theist? Have we ever had someone like that? And I can't think of one person my entire life who's actually been an open theist in government ever. I'm sure in the past there have been, but there hasn't been that I can actually remember. And it's just a strange concept to me to actually be vilified publicly, because it just doesn't seem to happen in that sort of public way here. It only really happens from my own experience inside of a church, because I used to be a theist myself, where they may say a few snide comments towards various government people about what they get up to and what they don't get up to. But it's never given the public platform that you guys seem to have, and I find that distressing, actually, because to me it's a non-issue, and it should be a non-issue, and it doesn't seem to be the case over there. So that's my take on it.
I wish I could say that it should be a non-issue like you. I would like to see a situation wherein, if you're going to elect a leader for a large body of people, and that leader has any potential toward military or even police powers, if that leader believes that he has an invisible friend who talks to him through his head and tells him to do horrible things in some righteous justification based on faith, I would like that person to be viewed as unelectable for being insane. Just my perspective.
I agree.
But that is, in fact, what all of our leaders in this state, in Texas, have so far been.
Aren't there like a few? I mean, I'm certain not in Texas, but there are a few representatives that are not that are atheists, right? There are a few outed atheists.
There are a couple of senators, one of which I'm aware of is openly atheist. and one recent addition is none of the above as far as religious status, but that's it. Now think about all the hundreds of people that are in the Senate, and weigh that out.
Right. I mean, certainly that not everyone is a religious extremist. I would say apparently most of the Republican Party are religious extremists, but I would say most of the Democratic Party in the United States, they're usually pretty heavily moderate, you know.
Well, unfortunately, we have quite a few religious Democrats too. They recently added a famous.
Dad, close my door.
Got back into the
Can you close my
Democratic
door?
Party platform. Do you remember this?
Could you restate that because you kind of cut out?
Okay, the Democratic
Why do
Party
I need it on.
added God back into their platform. They'd taken it out for a day or so, and they were hotly criticized by the Republicans for removing God from the Democratic Party platform. So they wrote it back in, and they offered a vote that was supposed to be 2/3 majority, and they're counting this 2/3 majority not in numbers, but in how loud people scream in the audience. And in fact, after they did it 3 times, the first 2 times they were unable to tell which was louder, the A's or the nays. In a decibel reading, it turns out that the nays had it, and they voted to accept it as an A anyway.
Oh.
You'd think being like roundly criticized by the other side, by the Republicans, would have made them go, yep, we're on the right course.
Yeah.
Ow.
So is DPR in our...
No, he walked away right when you walked away for the bird.
Okay, well, he says he's here now.
He is?
Or at least
Is
the
he
message.
invisible? Like, because I see his chair.
Okay. I don't know what to say then.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not too familiar with the. I'm only familiar with the extremism as far as the religiosity in America goes. And I'm certain in Texas and in the Bible Belt, it's a lot it's a lot more politically active. But in Colorado, I've never really seen any really vehement theistic laws set into place. So
Really? So when Ted Haggard...
Oh, right. Yeah, well, there is.
So when he tried to change, I guess you weren't there maybe a decade ago, because it was 10 years ago that Ted Haggard tried to change the Colorado state constitution so that they could write in discrimination against sexual orientation so that they could deny homosexuals employment and housing.
No, I was.
And the explanation that Ted Haggard gave before anybody knew that he was gay himself was that as Christians, we have a right to treat certain people differently.
So all men were not created, or all, what was that thing? All men were created equal, or except if, they're gay or homosexual or,
Or black.
Well, yeah. Also, we have our first caller, Leonard from Orlando. Yeah, I got to tilt my head every time because that's where the monitor is. It's annoying.
That's an awesome game.
Why did you do that?
Oh, it's my TV. I got a TV and a new monitor. I use them both together now. Hello, Prime. You're on the air.
Hi, how's it going? Hi, my name's Lenny. I actually tried to call into the Magic Sandwich Show earlier today, but I had a very limited amount of luck with Google Hangouts. It's a great pleasure to be on, and thank you very much for having me. One thing that I wanted to actually ask you guys regarding the topic that you guys were discussing, as to why atheists might be the least trusted group in the world. I think it's because if you could break it down to a very simple kind of human nature level by saying that, we are still by nature pack animals, and a great way to define your pack is by saying, not so much these people are in my pack, but these people aren't. Christians are in my pack, but that would mean that atheists aren't. So it helps people define themselves. if that makes any kind of sense. It makes sense when I said it to myself in my head a couple of times, but it might not make sense coming out of my mouth.
Could it possibly be because of the Cold War and the whole atheism associated with communism?
Well, I also think that what you said was, it made perfect sense. I'm not 100% certain that it's true. Because as I understand it, there's religious people who say, well, you're in a different religion that's not in my pack, but you're still more trustworthy than an atheist.
Because they only trust people who believe on faith, because somehow they got the impression that morality is forcibly imposed by an indomitable despot in the sky.
Which isn't the slightest bit crazy pants.
And isn't even applicable, because, you know, while they actually do believe that, they actually do believe that their God enforces morality and that they have to be good if they're going to get into heaven, that's actually not part of their theology at all. It doesn't matter how good or bad you are. All that matters is whether you believe. And if you believe, you can be a horrible sinner and be forgiven. And if you are a non-believer, it doesn't matter what a saintly person you are, you're not getting in.
Also joining us at, sorry to interrupt, but also joining us from American Atheist is David Muscato.
Hey, Dave.
Hello.
You know him, Aaron?
Yep.
I think we know each other. How's it
I'm
going?
fairly certain you and I met at the American Atheist Convention in Austin just recently.
Yeah, probably.
I think I
Yeah.
must have seen him in about 4 different events so far this year, at least.
I did not know.
Yeah, well, he and I are both state directors for American Atheists.
I just called American Atheist, and I asked for David Silverman, but this guy picked up.
Yeah, I'm the PR director. Yeah.
That's where David Silverman got this guy. Oh, man.
Yeah. That's the story.
Okay. Which reminds me, I was supposed to call Dave today. My wife was concerned that I'm not on the speakers list for the next convention. I think I know how Dave's going to set that up, though.
I haven't heard. Yeah, that's kind of Amanda's territory, but I will find out. Let's see.
No, I'm sure what it is I mean, the tradition has always been to have the directors come and introduce the other speakers, and as part of that, you do your presentation, and then you introduce the next person after you. So we wouldn't necessarily be on the bill.
Gotcha.
Would it be possible for me to just actually pose a very quick question to the panel, and then I'll
Go ahead.
It's not the one about where babies come from, is it? Because you should have learned that a long time ago. Sorry,
no, my
go
darling,
ahead.
that's the stork. We can't insult each other's intelligence by debating that. The question that I want to ask you guys is just a very quick framing. I've been an atheist I'm 28 years old now. I would say I've been an atheist for 14 years, although I didn't identify myself as an atheist until I was 18, because I didn't want to make any kind of hasty decisions with my life. At a young age, I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to say I'm an atheist until I'm 18, when I'm old enough to know better. The second I turned 18, I started calling myself an atheist. Over the last 10 years, though, I mean, I don't know if you guys go through this, but there have been a couple of instances, and it still happens to this day, really, where I kind of sit myself in front of a mirror and say, Lenny, are you a fucking idiot? Are you throwing everything away? What do they know that you don't? Is there something wrong with me in my head that I just can't see what they see? Am I making sense here? Like, is that something that you guys experience?
Not to me. I'm not understanding where you're coming from.
Oh, I totally get where he's coming from. I don't experience it, but I get it. Because I feel that way about other issues, just not this one.
Well,
sure. I'm in a bit of a fucking minority here, it would seem. Seems fair. I don't know, just occasionally, like, I mean, when you think about hell and you think about what's at stake and you think about what you might actually be losing, I can't make myself believe what I found. For all the trying in the world, I can't force myself to think that any of this could be real. But at the same time, there's always background fear of what I could be losing out on.
Well, just remember this.
Thinking like that.
Just remember this: the stick and the carrot method that they're using with the eternal damnation for disbelief and the undeliverable promises that are greater than anything that you can imagine if you do believe. These are not the criteria of an actual being that really exists. The only scenario in which you would ever have criteria like these is if you've got a bad salesman desperate to make that sell.
Or possibly a mob boss.
And there's a situation I'd like to liken it to, because I've been talking I talked to my friend about issues like this, and we discussed whether or not believing is a choice. And as you said, you can never choose to believe the conclusions you've come to. You can never choose to believe. So asking yourself if there's something wrong with you by not being able to choose to believe something that seems irrational to you is like asking if there's something wrong with you for not being able to choose to like, I don't know, some food that you taste. It really, there's nothing wrong with you if other people have a different preference, but there might be something wrong with them if their preference is detrimental to you and other people.
Well, you got to remember that faith is make-believe, okay? And that's literally what it is. These people do choose to believe. They believe things that, just like Mark Twain said, believing what you know ain't so. This is very often exactly the case. When I was in Houston with all these protesters last weekend, this guy told me that he answered my question that I posed to so many of them: is it dishonest to assert as fact that which is not evidently true? He said, for me it is. He's talking to me. For me, as somebody representing science, that would be dishonest. But for somebody of faith, then it is not dishonest. Even though it's a lie, it's still not dishonest because it's faith.
Right, but you don't believe a lie, you're just lying, you know? I mean, that's just a word game. He's just bullshitting, because you don't ever believe the lies unless you're a sociopath, right?
Well, that's what they're trying to do, is they've described it to me. One person put it as being mind over matter. Another person described it as the power of positive thought. It's will against reason. It is one person described it as eating the word, where they would force themselves to believe whatever the Bible said, no matter how ridiculous it was. William Jennings Bryan said that if the Bible said that Jonah swallowed the whale, he would believe it.
Wow. I mean, not that there isn't crazier stuff in there than a person swallowing a whale, but yeah, to hear somebody say it like that is pretty
Well, it gives it fully explains how there is no reason involved in these decisions, and this is why you can't reason with these people.
Well, I think there's just enough reason that they don't outright reject it, but there's not enough reason to cross that threshold of this is reasonable, which is why you need the faith part. I've talked to some believers who do believe, they claim without faith, that the information that they have available to them and the evidence and the books that they've read lead them to conclude that this is true. And most of the people that I've heard that from are deists who are basically ignorant out cosmology and stuff like that.
I'm curious, what evidence do they say that they have?
Like, for example, the few Christians that you talk to like this, they're rare, but they'll say, I've read a lot of history books and stuff, and how it wouldn't.
I'm terribly sorry. I've got to butt in, because this is
Sure.
sort of like a continuation of a conversation that we just had on the Magic Sandwich Show with someone called Jason Burns, who thinks that by saying, I've got a book here that says this, so it's therefore true. I'm sorry, that's not evidence.
But he's a scholar.
It may at best be persuasive, but it's not evidence. So rather than say, I heard about this bloke that read a book that said in this book that blah, 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 what is the actual evidence? It's only until you can actually test the evidence that they purport to have that you can make any decision about their conclusions. And normally what you will find is that the evidence it's not evidence in any meaningful way. And I don't want to get all lawyerish about this. I spent 20 years as a lawyer understanding what evidence is, and it amazes me that these people do not seem to have the faintest idea what evidence is, and it really pisses me off. So I'm totally sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, and I wasn't
It's okay.
suggesting that you were advancing a position different to mine. But if they claim they have evidence, then ask them specifically what that evidence is. And when as soon as they say, as Jason Burns did this evening, oh, well, it says in Galatians 1 or whatever, conversation's over.
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I really think it does just stem from ignorance. People who have not studied probability statistics, people who have barely studied history, they don't understand. Bayes' theorem is another great example. They just don't understand the connections here, or people who haven't studied logic. And for those people, I don't really think it's their fault. They are trying to believe something that they think, or excuse me, they're trying to be reasonable, but they have bad information. They don't know what the definition of evidence is. They don't know how probability works, and they've been exposed to incorrect history. And I would say that the Bible is evidence. I mean, these are ancient documents from near the time that this stuff happened, not close enough to count.
I'm terribly sorry. Let me pause you again. The Bible is evidence of what?
Of the stories that it tells, but it's shit evidence. I mean, we have ancient books that talk about Socrates and stuff, and we take those as information about Socrates' life, but we don't think that they are necessarily completely accurate, and we wouldn't claim that they're 100% accurate the way a lot of these people do. The Bible, I'm not saying I believe it at all, but I'm just saying that we do. I mean, historians do count ancient documents as evidence. It's just they're not the kind of evidence that's ideal. Ideally, we want same-day accounts or next-day accounts. We want multiple attestations, independent sources. We want, those types of things. The Bible, it does not pass any of those tests, but it's better evidence than no evidence. In the same way that you wouldn't convict somebody in court.
If I may, I'm no
it's okay. Yeah, please jump in.
Interrupting you.
It's fine.
You say it's better evidence than no evidence. My assertion would be it is no better than no evidence. Because, let's face it, it's an example I used before. I can absolutely justify the existence of Hogwarts by making reference to the Harry Potter novels. Yeah? Now, let me conclude, if I may. There are aspects of the Harry Potter novels that I know to be true. For example, in the Harry Potter novels, he talks about King Cross, or the author talks about King's Cross Station, and it having certain platforms. I can go there, I can see them. I can see platform 9, I can see platform 10. So, this is definitely authoritative of its truth. I can't see platform 19 and 9 3/4, sorry. Obviously, because I'm not wizard. So you can see these aspects of truth in the Harry Potter novels. Let's go back to what you were saying. You're saying that the Bible is better evidence than no evidence at all. My assertion, as I say, is it isn't.
Well, I actually think
there
it's
is
worse
no
than that.
evidence that you can take from the Bible that you can take as evidence of anything. Sorry.
If I may, I think it's actually worse than that. I mean, as I'm fairly fond of saying, the Bible is not evidence, it's the claim itself. You're trying to use the claim to prove the claim. I mean, the Bible is the one that says God exists. That's where the people who say God exists got the very idea in the first place is, hey, look, I've got a book that makes that claim. So it's not evidence. You can't use it as evidence because that's circular.
I would say the reason that, I'd say that's half correct. The Bible is both the claim and evidence depending on what argument you're making. If you're making the argument that God exists and then you're using the Bible to back that up, then that is evidence for that. It's really bad evidence and it's easily demonstrable to be incorrect. But in that argument, you're using it as evidence. If your claim is that the Bible is correct, then your claim is the Bible, and then you would need external evidence to show that that's right, not to be, if you don't want to be circular.
That actually...
And so I
exactly-
can understand
One at a
your
time,
point.
one at a
Can you
time,
just
please.
explain this to me? What evidence can we take from the Bible?
Well, I mean, it's we can take evidence from it about what language was spoken and what language people wrote.
So it was written
In Koine Greek.
obviously in
Yep.
English as it was when the King James version of the Bible was written in 1609. Yeah, sorry, 1611. My apologies. So it's
Yeah,
written in English.
Yeah, I mean, we can take. Well, that's. I mean, it was translated into English, but
That was a joke. Are you being serious?
I'm saying that we can learn certain cultural things about the ancient Middle East by reading it. We can learn about what they believed and what they taught. That doesn't mean it's true, but we
Well,
can.
in this case, in the case...
In that,
that
if you accept, I'm sorry, Oren, just one brief second.
It's okay.
If you say that we can learn things, but it may not be true, then you're basically saying that we can't learn things from it. And I'm sorry, when you're looking at a book that is so riddled with contradictions and obviously factual misinformation, such as, well, unless things have changed in the last 4,000 years, I don't believe that rabbits chew the cud. Now, if a document strikes 13, so to speak, that is to say, it is consistently proved to be wrong, then what accuracy or what evidence at all can you actually take from this document?
Yeah, but I need to jump in and explain to him what we were talking about. The challenge in this case was that this guy had called me out because I said there was no evidence that Christianity was true, right? And of course, the evidence of the claim
Well,
of
you're actually wrong.
What?
You're totally wrong about that.
I'm
You haven't
totally wrong
actually... No, seriously, you are. And I've always been meaning to pick you up on this point, but you are wrong about it for this reason. If you're talking about evidence of Christianity as a faith system, then there is a whole deal of evidence that Christianity is a faith belief system. What you're actually trying to say, and I think you do have to be more specific about this, is there's no evidence for the Christian God. They are. It's not just a semantic argument. I know I'm being belligerent. I'm tired. It's late. I'm sorry. Do carry on.
And this was all explained in the blog forum that we set up for him, where it was clarified what are the claims that Christianity makes, what's the sole source for each of these claims, and it was expressed. There's no evidence that any of this is true, and the sole source of that is the Bible. So again, he turns to the Bible as proof of the Bible. We know the Bible's true because the Bible says so.
Just to note, we have another caller. We have R.J. Locke from Olathe, Kansas. Welcome to the show, R.J. What's your question?
Hey, how's everybody doing?
So,
I was calling in, and I wanted to know, I live in Kansas, as he mentioned, very, very, very red area. And we have things that occur here that probably only happen in other places like Texas and Oklahoma. And how do you, I mean, theists, they, for example, the newscasters, my mother, for example, will go on Facebook and share Bible verses with them. And these are the people that are supposed to be, reporting the news. Earlier this year, there was a big scandal with a prayer group that sent memos all around the state capitol asking for politicians to pray, asking them to pray for the dark spiritual areas in the state, which basically included anywhere with liberals. And so my question is, how do you combat this when you're in hostile territory and completely at the mercy of these guys, voting power and control? I mean,
guns, big fucking guns.
No, that's a joke, and here in Texas it wouldn't be taken very well because everybody has guns and everybody's expecting gun violence. That's why everybody has guns. That's why the most outrageous people here have, like Alex Jones has 50 guns to protect him against liberals. So you don't want to throw a joke out there like that. I'm one of those rare people that will get in the street and protest things like this. So when our governor decided that the best way to deal with a drought situation was to hold a prayer rally, we demonstrated at that rally, along with, amusingly, the Westboro Baptist Church.
That's a group I've seen no less than 10 times this year. I mean, they're as close as... Huh?
In your state?
Oh, yeah. They protest as close as a mile from my house a couple times a year. I mean, they're very close. I've gone down there and dealt with them before. And as theist as Kansas tends to be, we do not have any appreciation for the Westboro Baptist Church, even when people agree with them. So, but...
That happens?
Yeah. Some people do, but yeah. It is crazy, but even we think they make us all look bad, but we make ourselves look bad for the most part. So I guess change happens from the inside out. I guess to some degree, it's just the idea that most people here are raised a certain way, and they stay that way till the day they die, and they never question it. I don't meet anyone else that most of my friends are secular. They were raised that way. They aren't atheists because they don't have that idea of having been indoctrinated the same way I have, so they don't care, and so that just seems to be the way it works. So I guess my question is just I need to find the answer is I need to find more people that actually want to take a stand on it and associate and join up and such.
Did you attend Reason Fest?
I didn't. No,
Okay.
I haven't been to any of these things yet. I'll be at a Skepticon here in November.
Were you aware of Reason Fest?
No, I was not. I
Okay.
haven't been much into the community. Last 3 or 4 months maybe.
Okay,
So-
well, it was quite a few months ago that,
Oh, yeah.
they did Reason Fest, but it was this year,
Uh-huh.
and that was in I think what is it, Lawton? Or it's just a bit east or west.
It's in
rather.
Lawrence. It's at
Lawrence.
KU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawrence is a friendly area. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a college town. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This was I think their third year.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's every February or so.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Yeah.
Incidentally, though, something I wanted to say before, I'm not entirely certain I agree with how you characterized being an atheist. I mean, because if you talk about joining up, I mean, atheism doesn't come with dogma. It doesn't have the organization the way that a religion does. And, if you say that these people were secular but not atheists, if the number of gods they believe in is 0, they're atheists. They may not be active atheists. They may not be strong atheists like a lot of us might define ourselves, but they're still atheists. I mean, atheism doesn't come with, being an activist.
Mm. And I misspoke. I was trying to draw a parallel between the two, separately, and I apologize for having
Yeah.
been
I have
confusing.
friends who tell me that they are not atheists, they just don't believe in God.
Yeah.
I've heard that. Yeah. And actually, at our convention in Salt Lake City this year, we have 3 keynotes that we were specifically going for people who had not before been involved in atheism activism, who are not part of the atheist community. We wanted some new blood, basically. And we didn't do this on purpose, but as it turns out, all 3 of these people do not identify as atheists, even though they don't believe in gods. And it's like, okay, we need to have a little talk here before you go on stage. But I mean, this is part of our mission statement as a nonprofit. What we do is try to normalize the word atheist to get people to use that word given the condition that they do not believe in any gods. People are afraid of that word because there is a stigma, and they don't want that stigma attached to them, even though that is what they are.
And my friend put it like this. He says, I said, are you convinced that there... He was ridiculing a friend of ours by saying she's not an atheist because she doesn't know that there's no God. Right?
And that's just, And
so
that's
I
just
had to call him
ignorance
up, and
about,
I had to explain to him that it's not about a knowledge statement. It's not gnosis, right? I said, are you convinced that one or more gods must necessarily or probably do exist? And he said, no, I'm not convinced of that. And I said, congratulations, you're an atheist. And he goes, no, because I'm not convinced they don't exist either.
Can I just throw in something for your consideration? I recently, literally recently, a few moments ago, got a message from an old friend. You'll know him by the name of Taxi Andy. Hi, please comment on this. Hi, DPR. I saw the show tonight. You are right. There is no evidence of Jesus, God, or desperate misspelling of creation. There wouldn't be. If there were, we would all believe. It's only by faith we accept. I accept not because I choose to, but I'm reading this badly because the spelling is appalling. Not because I choose to, it's because I have no choice. John 6:44, which I'll get up and read for you if you require it. Keep well, old friend. Kiss, kiss. Wink, smile. I don't know what it's supposed to mean. But there we have someone, a theist, who I have to say, in a way, I congratulate him. He's saying we have no evidence. All we have is faith, but I've got no choice but to believe.
Okay, what's that citation he gives?
John 6:44.
John 6:44.
Oh, goody, we have a Bible study.
Help you out with that. John 6:44.
Okay, I've got it here.
I'm too Old
So
Testament to know where that is.
No man can come to me except the Father which has sent me draw him, and I'll raise him up at the last day.
Oh my gosh, is he Calvinist?
So what he's mistaking
the point
here
is that here we've got actually a truthful theist who is saying, so far as I can see, no evidence for it at all. It's just a faith issue.
Well, see,
I have no problem with that. If all theists were so honest and said, look, I've got no evidence, I just believe it on faith, then we wouldn't have an argument. It's those that claim that they are theists and they have evidence for it.
Yeah, but this
are really
Well, we
irritating.
still have a bit of an argument because faith is one of the biggest problems I have with religion. I think it's ludicrous, but...
Well, if I could comment on what you said, DPR, it doesn't, just because they say they believe it on faith and there's no evidence doesn't prevent them from acting in public, and it doesn't prevent them from trying to take political positions. So I think there's still an issue with it, you know.
Yeah, it's ironic that this exact passage was thrown at me this last weekend when we were protesting in Houston. There was a Christian couple that took us out to lunch just to sit down and talk with us and find out what makes us tick. And they cited exactly that verse when they were telling me that they were Calvinists and that they believe that what you believe or don't believe is not even a factor in your salvation. It's predetermined because you're drawn in by Jesus, just the way you said, the way that you're drawn in, and it's not a matter of choice. There's nothing we can actually control about it. God already knows who's going to send to hell.
Sorry to note, but we have another caller.
Okay.
From the USA, 13 Heathen, his name is.
Oh, not that wanker.
He's a squirrel.
Squirrel boy!
Yep, Squirrel Boy.
You guys know this person, or are you being funny?
No,
I was being funny.
Okay,
I
no, that's
had
fine.
a few
I'm just
conversations with him recently. I think 13 Heathens is a very sound person, and I do enjoy his contributions. So yes,
Yeah, been
I
in more
was
than
having
my
a
fair
joke
share
when I said a
of
wanker.
hangouts with him.
It's an English thing, okay? Get used to it. It's called...
Oh, that's okay. I'm still not promoting your channel.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah, and you can't have my beer.
Well, the actual topic is supposed to be about atheism in the public, and along those lines, I do have some additional questions, because I started getting into the activism online and kind of missed the boat because I covered the wrong topic, so to speak. I remember when you were first starting off, Aaron, and back in that day when you were first starting off, I'm sure you had no idea that you'd be running around doing conventions these days. Is it at all overwhelming to you at times?
Well, I've got a presentation to do in 3 weeks that is going to be kind of a big deal, and I'm still formatting it today. And I promised I would be done with it, but I'm doing these shows, and then I've got at least 2 more other conferences that are coming up the month thereafter, and there's talk of doing a tour of Canada.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wherein I would take a week off and go speak in Edmonton, Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. And this is just tentative. They're not up on the schedule yet. So I don't actually know if those things are going to happen. And there's a lot of things that come up on the fly that I end up having to go off to. And I have a great deal of fun doing these sorts of things, but you're right, it is nothing like what I would have expected. A friend of mine from decades ago called me yesterday and said he was looking me up online, and he was somewhat alarmed at how all over the web I was when he looked me up. So again,
if I can answer the question more truthfully, because Owen is far too modest to do so, he's absolutely tickled pink by it. He loves it. He loves all the attention, so much so that, you know, I used to think that I could call him a chum. Now I can't. He's just an intellectual megastar that travels around giving lectures and whatever. And I feel no more worthy to kiss his feet than I would to kiss Jason Burns. He's awesome.
Oh, I did not need that much smoke blown up my ass.
I don't know. That much smoke might give him cancer. Be careful.
Well, I have a question regarding this. It's interesting. I was speaking to my father about this, and to me, I've always viewed it because, like, I mean, obviously we all have our biases, right? We're all subject to our bias about religion, and there's a lot of things to overcoming your bias. But, you know, from my dad's perspective, and he's religious, he's a conservative Republican. So obviously we get into spats all the time about this sorts of stuff. But, you know, he kept telling me that atheists are always trying to convince other people not to believe in God, and I always felt like, no, we're just trying not to get our rights stripped away by those who are trying to convince us to believe in God, you know, and that to me was always the case. It was never the case that atheists are trying to get people to believe. But on that note, since we're doing all these public conferences and there are rallies happening more frequently than before, of course, is this making a positive impact? Does everyone perceive like a positive impact as, you know, as for atheism or secularism, if that's a word?
May I go first on this?
Yes.
I butted in, and so I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm not sure whether it does make a positive influence or not. I suspect that it does, and I think there are good reasons for suspecting that it does. But what you've got to understand, and the comments are made about Aaron a few months ago, obviously somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but what he's actually doing is something that I think is incredibly important. In this country, religion is, if at best, a background noise. And it was only through coming onto the internet, coming onto YouTube, that I discovered that in America, it really has a very serious impact on people's lives. And what Aaron is doing, in this country, I mean, people obviously would enjoy listening to him, but he's dealing with America and the position and the situation that America has. And I think it's something that does have to be dealt with. I think it's absolutely appalling, the state of the education system in America, the state of the whole concept that you cannot, for example, stand for public office in America unless you say that you are a believer of some sort, or as long as it's a Christian God, everything will be fine. Find me an atheist. I think there are two in the entirety of Congress, one of whom is a very long-serving person that has got such reputation that they're not likely to be voted out, so they can actually feel comfortable in coming out as being an atheist. I think there's one other, but again, Owen will be able to correct me about this. These are serious issues. These are issues that have impact not only on education but on people's human rights. I could go on. Do you want me to go on? About human rights, about equal rights to marriage, gay sex marriage. Oh no, we don't have this, and this is all biblical and whatever. No, this is nonsense. So yes, I think that what Oren is doing is absolutely fantastic. Everyone that is doing something similar in America is doing a good thing. Whether it has an impact or not, who knows? I suspect it is. But even if it isn't, is it not a good thing to try and make a change?
No, I definitely support it. I just it's kind of enticing to curiosity to wonder how far it's advanced, because this might be a BS statistic, but I've read somewhere that atheism is on the rise, or just secularity is on the rise in America, and I hardly looked up this statistic, so I don't know much about it. But to me, it would seem like there is some progress being made, but I don't know. It's so hard because, I don't think anybody is contesting really religious beliefs. I mean, to an extent they are, but I think they're contesting religious fundamentalism that leads their beliefs to impacting the lives of others negatively. So I don't know. To me, it's more of it's not really about progress. I mean, to me, it's been more of a defensive situation. These conferences are kind of to say we're not going to have our rights taken away, and then there is the positive aspect by fighting for rights, for the homosexuals and things like that. To me, it seems like it's just an affronting. It's an affront from the religious, and then it's a defense from our perspective. That's to me what it seems like.
I'm sure Aaron wants to speak about this, but forget about it's not an inconsequential issue, gay marriage. But the one thing that I think is perhaps more important than anything else is the situation so far as it regards education. That I think is very, very troubling.
Absolutely.
Well, kind of along those lines, on my own YouTube channel, I guess I do kind of try to debunk religious claims, but it's not necessarily just here's the evidence that you're wrong, as it is here's the flaw in your reasoning. And so that kind of goes towards education, because I think a lot of people haven't actually gotten the kind of education in things like logic and reason to figure out why they're thinking about the entire. So on the subject of progress, I don't know about the rest of you, but every now and then I'll get someone who will say, I was religious, and then you explained to me why it was wrong, and now I get it, thank you. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, being thanked for what one does on YouTube. So I think we are making some progress.
Well, but my point, Bionic, would be this. Is the slight changes that we are having, and I occasionally get, or I used to, because I've not made many videos, I don't get them so much anymore, but I used to get that sort of message. But are we merely Canute in front of the waves? The waves being the force of the religious, who have got enormous amount of money to spend, who are pushing back the very ideas of education and trying as best they can to sneak creationism into the classroom. And they're a very powerful movement. That's a problem I have.
And that certainly is a problem, but I mean, there's not a lot I personally can do about that. So I do what I can on my own YouTube channel. But I mean, not to say I don't do what I can, but you know, I'm like this tiny particle against, like you say, a huge wave. So.
Well, if I may, and if you don't mind me going with a little bit of a strangely theological mindset on this one as well, by the time I get to the end of it. When I started dealing with people that were promoting things like the pre-sup argument and what have you, I was arguing against them, and at times I would cite my wife's experience because she has her degree in world religion, and for the majority of her life, very much strongly identified as a Christian, and that's been weakened due to the form of apologetics that has been promoted lately. And I've found myself on more than one occasion actually standing up and defending her beliefs. I may not share her beliefs, but I've had to stand up and actually defend them against people that would do things like claim that she's not a true Christian because she's not fanatical enough, etc. And I find this ironic because in the Bible, whenever they would have one prophet in the Old Testament, there would always be two, one preaching to hold up the aristocracy and the other preaching to tear it down. And in some lights, if you were to even take this from that Christian kind of worldview and that kind of view towards the prophets of the Old Testament and what have you, there would always be two sides. You have the fundamentalist movement on one side that's saying, come our way, come to the dark side. And then there's the atheists on the other side saying, turn on a damn flashlight, what's the matter with you? So in some ways, you have the regular believer that's caught in the middle of this struggle. And I think it's really important that the atheist movement be out there to say it's okay to question. It's okay to think for yourself. You don't need to agree with what these people are trying to force you into.
The polarization that you're talking about is a very interesting one that I've seen emerge more so than ever just a week ago. When we did that protest in Houston and this couple took us to lunch to see how we tick, this couple of Christians, they closed their discussion with us with a commentary that if we have people in our family or our friends, our circle of friends who are Christian, then why should we permit that they be compromising Christians instead of professing Christians, and that what should happen is if they're going to believe the Bible at all, they must believe the whole thing, even the parts that they can prove are wrong.
Well, I mean, it doesn't seem like that's required in our country. We don't have to be, you can be on either side of an issue, or you just ignore the issue entirely, right?
Well, the mainstream would mix both Christianity, their religious beliefs, whether it's Christianity or not. They have some form of spiritualism, and they have some understanding of science. That's the mainstream. But the mainstream are being directed by the radical fringe. Now, I fully understand that being an atheist activist, that's going to put me on one extreme. I get that. And that the presuppositional fundamentalist apologist activist is all the way on the other extreme. And the two of us are causing a polarization in the ranks of the mainstream. That's, I think, entirely beneficial, because there are fewer people who are siding with the precepts in the kind of madness that they're showing than are being forced away from them. Okay, there are people that are being convinced by our scientific arguments, but there's not many of those. There are more people actually that are leaving religion behind as a result of their reaction to the extremes on the other side. The number one reason that people give for why they are former Christians that have now resigned to atheism is that they've read the Bible. And the number three reason is the scientific evidence, but the number two reason is the dishonesty and the hypocrisy of the religious right.
Aaron, where'd you get that statistic? I'd like to keep it handy.
Yeah, I wish I could find it. Unfortunately, it was reported to me from a poll that I've never actually seen.
Okay, just curious.
If I may, could I
go ahead.
Real quick take this opportunity to tell Griffin 9857 to shut up, because nobody can get a word in edgewise where they're constantly talking like this.
Are you guys on the Twitter feed?
No,
The fun art of sarcasm.
No, she's being sarcastic to me. See, this is something which, as I said earlier, is just so foreign to me, and I'm listening to this, and I'm just thinking, just how. I mean, I have a background in teaching. I'm a teacher myself, and I teach predominantly preschool kids, and I couldn't imagine walking into my classroom, opening up. Actually, no. Let me tell you a story about a placement I did. I mean, I've told Kate about this. She heard about this last year. How I was, as part of my degree, I had to do several placements in different schools. And the last one was at a Christian school. And I'm just like, oh, shit. Because I knew what was going to happen. And I was right. And I walked in there, and it was, I said very clearly that, look, I'm an atheist. I am going to be, good about it and respectful and not shoot my mouth off. Just like all I want is that you don't expect me to be a Christian because it's not going to happen. And they're like, okay, that's fine. But I couldn't believe the indoctrination that was going on in this place. I mean, they had several times throughout the day where they would put everyone in a group on the floor, and they would, read stories, sing songs, or whatever else. But there's this one point just before lunch where they had what was known as Bible nap time. And I thought to myself, because I had to sit there with them, I just used myself as crowd control, and they were teaching them that the literal creation thing is true. They went ahead and taught Noah's Ark as truth. And of course a 4-year-old is going to believe that, so they did. And I remember sitting there the whole time thinking, oh dear God, what is this? This is horrible. And it just makes me really, really angry that people would actually fill kids' heads with this when their teachers are supposed to be teaching them stuff that is relevant. I mean, it's so easy to teach a 4-year-old about science. Everything is new. Take them outside into the garden. You point out a few things. There's your science. You get your mathematics. Play-Doh, you can teach them about volume and length and everything through that sort of thing. But these people chose to not do that, to not actually teach them relevant things. They went ahead and cracked open a kid's Bible, and off they went. And I was just sitting there going,
I'm sorry, I may not have followed the conversation. I apologise if I haven't. Which country are we talking about?
New Zealand.
Oh, Lordy.
Oh, the land of
and
the home from comfort. The home of comfort.
Yeah, we. I apologise on behalf of my country. We did unleash that upon you. However, I said this earlier, I think to Strife, how if you ask any New Zealander, do you know who Ray Comfort is? They'll be like, Ray who? He is so unpopular here that no one has heard of him outside of the church, obviously, and even inside of the church, most of them would be like, who is this guy? Who are you talking about? So
Yeah.
he had to go over there in order to make a name for himself, because none of us give a damn.
Over here in my town, I live in Dallas, Texas. Ray Comfort was paid for one sermon at a 7,000-seat megachurch. He was paid what would be the equivalent of my annual salary.
Damn.
And this is a man who is a 2-bit scam artist with no understanding of science whatsoever and precious little knowledge of his own theology. Absolutely undeserved.
Wait, do you think he actually knows it, but he just lies, or do you think he just doesn't understand it?
I think Ray Comfort is a deliberate liar.
I actually hadn't heard of
agree.
that one. I hadn't heard of that one. Was that the one up in Carrollton or the one downtown?
He was at Prestonwood, the same one where Hitchens debated Dembski.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Well, here's what I think. I mean, he was educated in New Zealand. That's obvious. And if he was, he would definitely have known about science to the degree that he would have learnt when he was in school,
Let
because
me
we don't
pause you
teach.
there, if I may. Let me pause you there, because there's a difference between being taught something and understanding something. And I think this is an interesting question when it comes to comfort. Does he actually have the capacity to understand science? I suspect the answer to that question is no. Does he have the capacity to lie about science? I think the answer to that question is undoubtedly yes.
I honestly think
Absolutely.
Hold on, we're talking about a man who, when someone on his forum was called a bibliophile, he flipped his lid and said, "How dare you bring sexual references in here?" And they're like, "Dude, it's not pedophile, it's bibliophile." Okay, that's Ray Comfort.
I was gonna
So
say
he knows.
Oh yeah,
He knows.
Simple. Yeah, Six Flags Over Jesus. I remember that one. Okay.
No, I'm sorry if I didn't make my point clear. My point is that you require a certain degree of intelligence to appreciate your lack of intelligence. And I don't know that Comfort has such a degree of intelligence that he knows that he is utterly thick.
Ridiculous.
I honestly think
This is why I say that
If you sat him down and you went through it, and let's say we have the greatest teachers such as Aaron teaching him what evolution is, do you think he's got the capacity to understand it? Or is it willful ignorance to say, no, I'm going to stick my ears in my throat? My view is that he doesn't have the capacity to understand.
Well, see, this is why I'm always saying that insight is wasted on the intelligent. If you think about it. Well, you know, it's like the stupid people need the insight that the intelligent people are getting.
I don't think Comfort's that stupid. I think because he's smart enough to make a good income and stuff, but he's dishonest as fuck. That's all I would say.
Yeah, that's it. He has no honor. He has no shame.
On that episode of the Atheist Experience that he was on, he was nearly crying at the end, insisting that he was right, even though he knew that he'd been defeated. Maybe that's a sign right there.
Maybe he just does it like a facade, kind of like Craig.
Well, at the end of his discussion with me, he went into much the same emotional tirade.
It doesn't surprise me.
But you got to remember, this man has a 2-story house in Malibu, California. It's a beautiful house, and he has a call center in his living room.
Again, I apologize for him.
He makes $2 to $4 million per year. He pays everybody in his family over $100,000 each. He claims to donate to charity, and a recent release of his financial record shows that he gives no money to charity whatsoever. Kirk Cameron is his biggest expense, and that's $2 million.
Oh, please don't. That conjures up all sorts of images. Griffin, can I just say, look, do not. I think New Zealand is an absolutely wonderful place. It's beautiful, and every single person that I've ever met from New Zealand has always been a wonderful person, except for him.
Except him. Thank you.
Every single country has its little flaws. In this country, we've got a couple. We've got someone, you're probably not familiar with them, they're called Jason Burns. And
I was going to say Lord
Mumpkin. Taxi Andy.
What about Lord Mumpkin?
We all of us have our own apologies to make about people from our country. But no, New Zealand and New Zealanders, I think, are wonderful people. He's just your...
By the way, I expect to be in New Zealand again in April of 2015, briefly, albeit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Well, the last time when I went to the Global Atheist Convention in Melbourne, I was able to arrange a 10-hour layover in Auckland, and one of your locals took me around the countryside for several hours. We got to explore the Black Iron Beach, for example, and I just had a great time. It's absolutely beautiful, and wish the wife could have come along. A great trip. And I will make sure to do that side trip again when I go back to the GAC in 2015.
Excellent.
Wait, isn't that where you met Dave the Theist?
Dave the Theist.
Oh, the guy from the Global forget his name. This is off memory. Some guy you talked to after the conference.
Oh, is he one of the Brisbane apologists?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about now.
I just can't remember
Was
his
he-
name. I thought it was David or Dave or something.
I can't
Was he-
remember.
Was he the horrible guy that made you eat Vegemite? Yeah, I've seen the video.
No, not that guy.
That was somebody else.
Oh, that was
Outside-
horrible.
Outside of the...
No, but hang on, let's be clear about this. Vegemite is Australian, it's not New Zealand, is it?
Yes, we have something similar, so we're just as bad.
It's still cruel
Okay.
and unusual punishment.
And I like it. I'll put it out there.
What is Vegemite? What's it made of?
It's just a yeast spread. It's just a condiment you put on your toast in the morning, not like Aaron put on his. But
Is it like artificial mayonnaise?
well, you put it on just like butter. You put on just the smallest amount. It just adds a bit of zest to the toast. I think it tastes nice, but it's a real test to see if you are from this part of the world. If you like it, you pass. If you don't, you fail.
If you want to know what it
Yes,
tastes like,
I
it
had
tastes
the
like
opportunity
Vegemite.
I had the opportunity to smell it once, and I was like, no. Hey, imagine. No, I'm not even going to go there. I have the worst analogy, and I'm just not going to go there.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it, but that's just me.
Well, yeah, you're from that part of the world.
Yeah.
Just like we have ketchup on eggs.
Yeah, we do that here.
Oh.
Ew.
Okay. All right, so did we have callers or something?
I can't find any.
I can jump in.
Sure.
I was I meant to say this earlier, and I forgot about it for a minute. But we were talking earlier about statistics of changing demographics of atheism, and so it is definitely on the rise. There's no question. I believe it was when Gallup that put out a number that said in 2005, 1% of the population positively identified as atheist on demographic polls, and in 2012, 7 years later, that had quintupled to 5% actively identified as atheists. There are almost certainly a much greater number of atheists who don't call themselves atheists, who call themselves agnostics because they don't understand what the word actually means, or who would prefer to identify as non-religious. About 1 in 5 Americans identifies as non-religious, and about 1 in 3 Americans under the age of 30 also identifies as non-religious. Non-religious does not necessarily mean what we think it means. It could mean somebody who believes in God but doesn't specifically follow any religion. It can include atheists who just don't want to call themselves atheists. It can include Christians. There's kind of this growing thing the last couple of years of this idea that Christianity is not a religion, but it's a relationship with Jesus. And I've met multiple people who say, oh, I know, I'm not religious. I have a relationship with Jesus. I'm a Christian. And then you say, well, you know, Christianity is a religion. And they go, no, it's a philosophy. It's just,
Then
it's
they should
stupid.
pay
But
tax. Then they should not. They should
Yeah.
pay taxes.
I agree.
Then ask
but,
him this
yeah.
question. Ask him this question. What is the biggest religion or the dominant religion on earth right now?
They would say Muslims then.
Yeah,
They would
Islam.
have to.
Yeah.
If they were to be honest.
Yeah, but so I'm sure there are Christians who call themselves non-religious who are also in that 20% or 33% for under 30. But
is that the
yeah,
same
so
thing?
it's definitely growing, and in that intervening time between 2005 and 2012, End of Faith, God Delusion, God is Not Great, Letter to a Christian Nation, all of those were published. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. And then there was also the SSA was started, Secular Student Alliance, if you're not aware of them. Just a lot of activism has really taken off in these few years. Pete Stark, the congressman from California, came out as an atheist during that time. We had talked a little bit about different people in Congress. I don't believe there's anyone who's out in Congress right now, actually. Barney Frank came out as an atheist recently, but he's also retired. His last term was last term, I believe. And then there's one
you have
person.
A new addition. You have a new addition who identifies as none of the above
Right,
with regard
right,
to religion.
That was the next one I was going to mention. And let's see. So I don't have. Well, I was going to say there are more people in Congress who do not believe in God. I know that, but they are not open about it.
But I think you've actually hit the nail on the head, if I may say so. And unfortunately, my phone on the other computer has just kicked in, so I apologise if my audio is not wonderful. But I think you've just hit the nail on the head. I think the turning point will come in America where people can actually openly say that they are atheists without having any fear that they're going to have adverse effects upon them. And I still maintain that it is going to be impossible for an atheist to be elected as president. It's almost impossible for an atheist to be elected into Congress. And it still is a huge problem in the employment field in America. Now, once you've got over that hurdle, then I think we've made progress. But at the moment, I maintain that there is this huge issue that you cannot openly come out as an atheist in America.
Well, it depends. I
included a link in the chat if you guys want to take a look at it. One of which is showing polls like what you were talking about. I believe the accurate number is that it was around the turn of the century, it was between 5 and 8%, and is now so closer to 15, and in some estimates 20%. Mm-hmm. But in the chart that I included in the link there, you can see, if you look at other Christians, you can see the dramatic drop everywhere in Christianity, and you compare that to the rise of the number of people claiming no religion and just correlate those two.
And I just reposted it to the Line Go Show live chat on the page.
Thank you.
Something that's interesting, I wonder, you say that there are people who come out as atheists after they've fulfilled their terms and everything. I wonder, DPR Jones, you made an interesting statement that I'd like to put into a hypothetical. I wonder what if someone was elected president and then came out as an atheist. What do you think, they would be like impeached immediately? What do you think the ramifications?
Popularity would drop, I would guess.
Well, yeah. I think it's interesting because I think Obama is probably an atheist. If he came out now, what would that do or serve? I think it could be positive in some regards, but his critics obviously are going to say, all your bad decisions were made because you were an atheist and you got no morality and whatever.
I don't know that I buy into that. I think
arguments like that.
I have to say that I don't think that Obama is an atheist either, even though his mother clearly was, and there's no argument about that. The problem that I have with these people is that, and I know I go on about this all the time, but it really is the case, that truth really doesn't matter from the perspective of religious belief. Okay, and belief for them really is a matter of choice, and they can simply choose to believe what they want to believe because they want to believe it and for no other reason. And I think that Obama has done that. He's chosen to buy into this to whatever degree that it suits him.
I mean, if anything, he buys me more as an agnostic.
Are you disagreeing with the fact that he would have been unelectable if he had been an overt atheist?
If he was an atheist, if he was an out atheist, he certainly could not have been elected.
Or he would not be reelected if he announced it in his other term.
Oh yeah, there's no question that he would not have been elected if he came out.
What harm do you see, Aaron? Let's run with my idea that he is an atheist. Let's say he doesn't declare it until he finishes his office, and then in his memoirs or whatever says, well, all the time I was an atheist. Do you think that would be damaging to the atheist movement, or do you think it would actually be a positive encouragement to it?
I think if I had to draw a line like that, black or white, I think it'd be more likely damaging than. Well, I don't see what damage it could do. I can't see it really being much of an encouragement. It wouldn't matter to people. But then, when George W. Bush had his last interview on his last day as president, despite everything that he had said about teaching creationism and promoting intelligent design and saying that the jury is still out on this, right? How did his last interview go? When they asked him, about whether the Bible was the truth of God, and he laughed and he said probably not, and said that because there was too much proof of evolution.
That was like
Or
a
he
kick in
just-
the teeth.
Yeah. So on his last day, he admits that he was an evolutionist this whole time. Now, does it help our movement that George W. Bush lied about
No.
accepting or believing evolution the whole time he was trying to undermine education from the office of the presidency?
No.
No.
But more so in the case of Obama, I really think that there'd be a bunch of people claiming that he was only claiming to be an atheist because we all knew he's a Muslim.
Yeah.
We can't forget that card.
Yeah.
I like your tiger, squirrel.
Oh, thank you. One thing that kind of gets me in this whole notion of politics, and this is that, is I really don't think it's somebody simply coming out as atheist is going to tip the scales or something like that. I really think that if we get just a couple more people that are, a little over-the-top religious, we'll just say, like Bush, a few more, enough candidates like that, I think eventually somebody that's an atheist will be welcomed by the community if we get enough of that fundy nutbaggery going on there. That it will eventually, if things keep politically going as they have been, kind of reach a tipping point that somebody will come up and say, nope, I don't believe in any of this religion stuff. That people will be just thankful that somebody won't be up there legislating based upon the book or their interpretation.
The way I look at it, strangely, is not the way seemingly anybody else looks at it. You have two different mutually exclusive positions. I want to know what is the truth behind either one, assuming that they will both have some degree of truth to share, because most people mix these perspectives. They have some knowledge of science and some spirituality to them. But what it turns out to be is that everything that we say about evolution turns out we can show that this is actually a fact, that there are transitional species, there are beneficial mutations, our genome is a wash of dysfunctional or deactivated primate genes, and so on. We have myriad facts in support of evolution, and then on the religious side, what can they show that is actually true? Zip.
Aaron, the only thing for macroevolution is time, and you can't demonstrate time.
But macroevolution is described as speciation on up, and we have seen speciation directly observed under controlled conditions dozens of times.
Right, and yeah, that's
the issue, of course, is this: that these people do not want to believe that they came from monkeys, or they may still be monkeys. That's the issue. And Owen, you're absolutely right. These people have got no interest in the truth, and as soon as you accept that, stop thinking about, oh, well, how am I going to persuade them? Because you're trying to use logical arguments to convince these people on the basis of evidence that they are wrong. They're not interested in what is right and wrong. They're just interested in what their faith system is.
Okay, if it
as soon
was
as you
the
accept
entire...
that, you have to accept that you're never, ever going to persuade them out of their position.
But you have to understand, DPR, you're talking in terms of a dichotomy, that somebody is either going to be accepting science or they're going to accept faith. And as I said, the mainstream, the majority of the population is a mixture of both. Not everybody is willfully dishonest. My wife stands as a testament to that, the fact that there are a number of people who believe what they believe because society taught them that, because everybody they know believes that, because they didn't know that they could even question that. And when you get the reasonable arguments out, there are reasonable people within the theistic community who will be receptive to that.
Well, that raises an interesting question as to who are the reasonable people amongst the theist community. What I was referring to, and I apologize if I didn't make this clear, is I'm talking about the hardline theists, who are not interested in evidence, fact, or reason.
Well, what you do with them is you use them as a tool for your own purposes, because, as I said, we have more people that are abandoning the religious position, not because we have compelling arguments, despite the fact that we do actually have compelling arguments. They're not reaching these people to the degree that the dishonesty and the hypocrisy of the religious right and the absurdities of the Bible is doing.
What about the people who have a financial gain?
Well, we can leave them out of that for the sake of this, because that sort's always going to be out there, no matter what cult or viewpoint they're trying to put forward. They're simply always going to be there, just waiting in the wings. If it isn't religion, it's huckstering with something else, whether it's miracle spring water or whatever. They're always going to be there. Yeah,
or that tachyon water.
But to quote my wife, it's not the atheist that, if she ever completely walks away from her faith, it won't be because of any argument made by an atheist. It'll be because of an argument made by a theist in defense of the faith.
Yeah, that's what does it. That's how they serve our purpose.
And this is, I think, part of why the discussion, the argumentation, what have you, is worth the time. Because I don't plan on, so to speak, deconverting anyone. I'm trying to pull people towards the middle, and where they go from there is their own choice. But at the same point, when they see these arguments made, when they see that, the big Christian argument now is this pre-sup nonsense when they're just simply trying to argue that you can't know what's real, that does more damage to Christianity than it does to atheism.
Yes,
I don't think it does any damage to atheism, frankly.
Yeah, it's just that it's so overtly dishonest that it I think can only serve our cause.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have a caller. I left in the wind for over...
Protests, do you actually, when you're out there at the cons, at the conventions and stuff, how many protesters generally show up? Is it generally small, isolated groups, or is it good size, or has there been any change?
Depends on where you are. When we were generally in college towns, we see hardly any. There were a few in Ireland. I was surprised there was a small Christian group, and they were run away by the Muslim group. And it was funnier in Australia because they had it segregated. The Christians were bellowing with a bullhorn on one side of the civic center, and telling us that we're all going to go to hell. And the Muslims were all chanting in unison on the other side of the civic center, Ayan Hirsi Ali, burn in hell, in this wonderful chant. And
Hello.
really hoping that we could get them on the same side of the building, because that would solve so much of our own problem.
Well, yeah, then you could just watch them fight each other. And
yeah. Can't really see them bonding up for a common enemy there.
Well, yeah, they go after each other's throats instead of the atheists. And hello, Boom. Welcome to the show. You have any questions?
Well, I kind of have more praise for Aaron Raw and as well as DPR Jones, but I actually do have a question. If Aaron Raw could possibly get to defining what makes us classify as monkeys, so that way I can have it in one place, because he does such a very good job of compiling everything as to why this is the reason it's defined this way, and comes together as to very good educational tool.
I did an 11-minute video trying to explain that, but the summary would be that in the scientific perspective, they think that all of the old world monkeys are in the classification of Cercopithecidae, which is a sister group to Hominoidea, or Cercopithicoidea, if you will. But it turns out that there is a fossil group that encompasses or is ancestral and basal to both of those other groups, meaning that our ancestors, both for the Cercopiths and the Hominoids, stem from this earlier group, which are clearly monkeys, even according to the experts, Flegel and Delson, who are the foremost paleoprimatologists. They describe the I can't remember the Pliopithicoidea as being monkeys, and then prior to them, you have a union between the New World monkeys, that being Platyrrhines, and the Old World monkeys, the Catarrhines, in another paraphyletic grouping of otherwise now extinct group called Parapithecidae. And they, too, were monkeys. And you got to forgive my parrot going off. He apparently wants attention.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say this. I've learned a lot from your videos, and that I've learned from what you've said that if you actually ask the right questions, you get the right responses. You can get them 100% to agree with your side as long as you don't mention what your side is, which is sort of dishonest, but inherently that they're being dishonest in and of themselves, so it's the only way you can actually find out what they really believe.
You know what I would like to do, since you mentioned that, and we brought this up about what people really believe in, what non what the nuns mean when people say none of the above on the religious aspect. How do I conduct a poll that would get a reasonable sample where it's not isolated for one particular demographic? How do I get a national poll to ask the question, are you convinced that any God must necessarily or probably exist? I would like to ask that question of practically everybody, a huge sample size. How do I go about doing that?
Well, you basically go to where everyone can see it. You're looking for population, being able to get as much of the population as possible. Basically, you get as many YouTubers to mention it that you can come together on trying to determine this is simply for scientific purposes, and it will be completely anonymous, so that way nobody will know who's answering what. But that way we can get the most honest answer possible, and no one will have to worry about it because the only people who know the answer is themselves. And you just find as many YouTubers, you find as many websites you can
But then
have
you've
this
got
listed.
the demographic ends up being those that are internet savvy.
Yeah, that's the problem, is that you don't want a big sample necessarily. What you want is a representative sample. You want and it's okay to just have 1,000 people. That's actually a pretty good sample size. Respond to your survey. That it's just that you want to make sure that you're getting people who don't have internet, people who are young, and people who are old. People who are college students and people who will never go to college. All different sorts of people. And really, the only way to do that is to commission one from one of the polling agencies, like Gallup or like the Religious Identification Survey, and I mean that's what those are for. And they do their best already to do that sort of thing. The best way to do this, I would say, would be to talk to the researchers at those organizations and explain, hey, we are professional organizations that work in this stuff, and we disagree with the definitions that you're using, and it makes it really difficult to understand these results based on the way that you're asking the question. And they spend, weeks poring over the wordings of these and doing, what are they called, panels, to see how people might misinterpret them before they send out the big surveys just for that reason. But I think it would be useful for us as activists to give our input to them too.
Yeah, because it's like you said, if you say if you ask people if they are atheists, how many atheists are going to say no? You know that they're out there. There's lots of them. I was an atheist for 15 years before I realized what the word atheist means, and that's why I'd want the poll to be directed with that question.
Yeah, well, that's like asking how many people masturbate. I mean, the majority of the male population masturbates, but you'll get it from the churchgoers, overwhelming silence. So you have to ask the right question. Basically, what you stated? Does it require for a God to exist? Do you believe that it's required for a God to exist in order for the universe to exist?
Well, I wouldn't phrase it exactly that way because that implies...
Well, the way you said it was better.
No, thank you.
Yeah. I was just trying to paraphrase, but...
Okay.
We have another caller.
All right.
The neo-atheist from Syracuse, New York.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Am I going? Oh.
And we're wrapping up onto the 30-minute mark.
Okay.
Yeah. Come on. Hello, Neo. Welcome to the show. Do you have any questions or points?
Yes, I just wanted to actually make a suggestion for Aaron Raw with the question he actually just posed. Using the Magic Sandwich Show website would probably be the best way to actually get out to a demographic there. Then basically just use Facebook as the social network it is, and then use that as the at least a launching point, I guess, would be the best way to put it.
Well, anything that's going to be based on the internet is going to be biased toward the atheists anyway, because as has been reported so many times, we own the internet.
The other question I actually had was for EPR and Aaron Ryan at the same time. How much of a headache really was it with Jason today? I mean, it seems like that was 3 hours of hell.
Yeah, I cannot stand that man.
It was kind of funny, though.
I mean, he has no tact. He has no comprehension of anything. It's disturbing to listen to him go off, because you talk about an authoritarian view, right? His evidence is there's this book. You have to go listen to this guy, and it doesn't get any more specific than that. You have to go listen to this guy. He's a scholar. That's his argument. That's his evidence. That guy's a scholar, and he agrees with me. So I can show a half a dozen scholars who agree with me. But it doesn't make any difference what the scholar believes. What matters is how accurate they are, and if you can show the data that supports them or doesn't. And that's where my argument is the data doesn't support the conclusion that a Jesus character ever actually, or no, well, not even the Jesus character. If you want to argue specifically the historicity of Jesus, that's another argument. We weren't. We were arguing for the validity and accuracy or the verifiability of Christianity. The specific charge made against me was that I said that there was no evidence in support of Christianity as the claims made by that belief system for the truth of Christianity. And I expressed that in writing on the blog or the discussion forum where we'd set this up. And so the only argument that he can give me that he claims is evidence is by looking to the sole source of the claim, which is the circular argument of using the book to prove the book, and then appealing to an authority by saying, this guy's a scholar and he agrees with me, and there it is.
That and jumping up and down and screaming, can you prove that?
So I actually have a question for you, Aaron.
Very, very briefly, Aaron's sentiments, but add perhaps this addition. Excuse me, I've spent 20 years dealing with evidence and what evidence is and what evidence isn't. And what absolutely irritates me about the likes of Jason is they have absolutely no concept of what evidence is. And not so much that, perhaps they apply totally different standards of evidence. When it comes to their religion, they will sort of like just apply this standard, which is so vague and wishy-washy. When it comes to another area of their life, oh no, yeah, they can deal with that. And Jason is a classic example of it. He has no concept of what evidence is. Well, enough. Other people wanted to talk.
You see, that one conversation with Jason has worn DPR out.
I've got to say, it must have been that part that actually where you guys actually were trying to make the point of if dead people were walking, it would have been documented, and he just wasn't grasping that. That was my favorite part of the whole 3 hours.
Well, if the historian in the neighborhood happens to be a mathematician, he's not going to be interested in undead corpses walking around. So,
again, what's interesting about that, and again, I've got the Bible here. God, I can't be bothered to refer to it, but the zombies only appear in Matthew. And this is the one question that I was seeking to get him to answer. If you believe in the resurrection, which resurrection account are you going to accept? Because there are 4 in each of the Gospels. Read them. You don't need me to tell you. Just read them. They are totally disparate. There's no cohesion behind them. The only thing that is the common thread is Jesus died and then he got up and was well again. Everything in between, and not only that, everything after is totally different in every single gospel. But Jason says, oh no, well, don't worry about these discrepancies. Just take the context of him rising from the dead and then use these external extra biblical sources to justify the context in which you should justify these discrepancies and whatever.
In other words, do everything completely backward of the way you would if you're thinking scientifically. Yes.
I'm not kidding you, right? Imagine this scenario, that this case is being judged in a court, and you've got 4 witnesses, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, all coming in, giving their account of what happened. The case would be thrown out before it was allowed to go to the jury, because these accounts are so different in their detail. The jury, it's what's known as, I won't bore you with it, which
I think you've got a video.
Galbraith submission. It's basically if the prosecution evidence is so weak, you make this submission at halftime, and your argument is no jury properly directed would be able to accept this evidence in order to convict. And with those 4 witnesses about the resurrection account, the prosecution's case would be thrown out without any question. But hey, if you're a theist and you're Jason Burns, look beyond that. And let's forget about that. And everything's okay because we can justify it somehow, somewhere, or whatever. No,
you justify it somehow. That's the philosophy that we're talking about. You remember when I was in that banter back and forth in a few videos with Gira? He accidentally divulged something about their philosophy, and when he said, if you use your imagination, you can still see a tooth comb, which makes this a lemur, right? So, I mean, you use your imagination. You justify it however you can. It is make-believe. It is pretend. It's not remotely about trying to find the truth of anything.
Who was that guy you mentioned?
Gear Up.
Gear Up.
Somebody that was teamed up with Venom Thing X for a while there, and basically was actually in charge of Venom Thing X's channel.
He has some sidekick as well called Sable Chicken, is it?
Yeah, which I think is
Sable Chicken,
Wow, I'd completely forgotten about Sable Chicken.
Sable Chicken was funny.
Aaron,
Sable Chicken was hilarious.
I had a question. How far back in our evolutionary lineage would we not be a monkey? I mean, would you say it would not be a monkey, or is that an incoherent question?
You want it in years?
We are a monkey.
No, I know that, but the lineage.
I mean, like which species was the first monkey, and what was it before that?
In a sense, like that I think 60 million year old primate. Is that a monkey?
Okay, what would be considered a monkey doesn't appear until, and I'm not really certain. I think it's right around 50 million years ago.
So wait, that fossilized what's that primate that we found over the last?
That's Ida. Ida was a transition, not in the human ancestry.
I know that part. Yeah.
Ida was the missing link between the mainstream of primates and the strepsirrhines, or the wet-nosed primates.
So it's still a primate. So it's still a monkey.
Okay, no. Can I expand on that question, if you mind?
Good.
Would that be an old war monkey that actually was there?
No, this was before monkeys.
Okay, so the separation of classification of old world and new world monkeys didn't actually exist. It was basically the predecessor to both that.
No. before you ended up with any monkey, before you had Old World monkeys and New World monkeys, you had parapithecid monkeys, and before them, before you have actual monkeys, you have proto monkeys like the one that was in the book, the Dawn monkey, and I'm trying to remember the name of the damn thing now, which wasn't a monkey either, but it's a proto monkey. You have a point where you have the simian line, and it's diverged. It and Tarsiers have diverged from the wet-nosed primates, where the only thing primate about them is that they have opposable thumbs. And in this case, we're talking about the lemurs. So the lemurs are this very separate group, and they're kind of basal because they still have wet noses and they still have 6 nipples, whereas all of the simians have 2 pectoral mammae, just like we do. Mm-hmm. The division is that on the simian side, we have all the necessary links to put them together, taxonomic, but we didn't have a connection to the lemurs and how they diverged from the rest of the primate line. And Ida was the connection. She was the basic primate, but also leading into these lemur traits before lemurs had them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. So pretty much the lemurs are the furthest branch of primates, right?
Yes, they're the most primitive.
Yes. There's nothing else older than them branch, right?
Well, not in the fossil, not alive today. No, in the fossil record, we have things that are more primitive.
But Oren, the one problem I have with that detailed explanation is, if we all came from lemurs, why are there still lemurs?
Because we didn't come from lemurs.
I don't know, DPR.
Why do we still eat bananas? Oren, explain that.
Oh no, not my worst nightmare.
I don't know, DPR. You do look like a lemur. You got big eyes.
Those are his glasses, dude.
Don't be a lemurist. Lemurs are kind of cool. I think if we were all promoting the idea we used to be lemurs because they're cuter than apes, we might actually get further.
No, some of them are. And the fossil record has interesting lemurs too. I mean, there was some really bizarre beasts in that group. They weren't all the cute, there's like 2 or 3 species that are still around today, and that's what people think of. But there were at least a dozen that we know of, and including some large, scary werewolf-looking things.
What part of Africa was the original protos found in?
I can't even remember.
Was it the Rift Valley?
I'm going to have to look that up.
If he's talking much further than that, I mean.
Yeah, it's much further back.
Yeah, and I don't remember where it was. I think the first primate, or the oldest primate ever, was not even in Africa. I think it was Asian.
Huh. Now you're just being silly because we all know Noah's Ark never went near Asia.
There was actually. Oh, sorry.
I can remember the book that I just mentioned the title of it, though I couldn't remember the author. The book was The Dawn Monkey, that talks about the earliest simian primate so far yet known. And simian would mean monkey.
Yeah.
I found on Wiki the oldest primate was from Africa, apparently. Weird.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I mean, that said circa 55 billion years.
Okay.
Yeah, but that time right after the great extinction of the dinosaurs, that
was after.
For a long time, that was actually a pretty murky area in the fossil record itself, though.
There was a question asked in the chat a few moments ago that might be worth mentioning, because they're asking what the next step in human evolution would be. And since evolution is based upon selective pressures and what have you, there's no way of knowing that, and I thought that should be addressed.
Well, another thing that you need to realize is that genetic drift is controlled by recombination, so that the larger the gene pool, the slower the evolution is going to be. Evolution goes faster in smaller collective groups being divided from the whole. So if you're talking about a single globally interbreeding population of 7 billion, we're going to become more alike than different. The only way we're going to become more different is if you take out the recombination factor and go back to the way it used to be before we had jet airplanes and things that were bridging all these geographical boundaries, and have people spending many, many generations in isolation in remote areas where they kept to themselves and didn't interbreed with every other cultural being. Then over 80 generations or so, you're going to start seeing people showing recognizable differences so that you can look at someone and know what part of the world they come from.
Well, I
And we're
suppose
already-
rather than going backwards for that, like as far as technology is concerned, I mean, I suppose interstellar travel might start to produce like differing branches of humanity too.
Or nuclear war.
Well,
Yeah,
that
but with
too.
the spatial exploration that Kate just mentioned, though, what about genetic manipulation? That's something that could play an intricate role in that too.
Yeah, and I just found the book that I was talking about. I looked it up on Amazon, and and that the earliest simian primate emerged in Asia rather than Africa. Yeah,
How long ago does it say?
45 million years.
Oh, then what the hell is his...
That's a mere eye blink.
Yeah, well, I was wrong because I said right around 50.
I ain't saying you're wrong. Okay, yeah, but,
Yeah, I was thinking 55.
I think a 55 million...
Wait, 60, anyone, 60. Oh, sorry, not an auction.
I was really thinking 50.
Yeah. Sold to the American. Okay, anything else?
Let's see, there has to be something, blah, blah, blah. Our stomachs are the last part of man to evolve that is evolving now and has changed observably.
Wait, our stomachs are the last thing to evolve?
That's what the last part of man evolved, and it is evolving now and has changed observably.
The definition of an animal has two criteria to it. One of which being that it's a multicellular eukaryote, and secondly, that it have a internal digestive tract. So that means it evolved first.
No, I think they mean like us being able to cannibalize meat and stuff.
Well, there are these adaptations within the stomach, but I mean, to say that the stomach evolved last doesn't make any sense.
I didn't write it. Some guy in the chat wrote it.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Kevin, you got anything?
Honestly, in my case, right now, I'm trying to pay attention as much as I can. I'm dealing with, my wife got sick now that my kids are feeling better, so I'm kind of running back and forth.
From the evolutionary standpoint, though, wouldn't wisdom teeth be the most current evolutionary trait that actually is going on in our species? I mean, being born without wisdom teeth.
Well, there is a chance that we can control that. And the next stage of our evolution is going to be that we control our own evolution. And speaking of wisdom teeth, they're trying to do that right now because they've discovered that a transverse mutation in the PAX9 homeobox gene controls agenesis of the wisdom teeth. So that if you have this one particular mutation that if I can remember this correctly, I think substitutes proline with aniline, but what the result is, you don't get wisdom teeth at all. They never develop if you have this particular mutation. So if it's possible to code this into the genome of a developing fetus, that fetus will preemptively never have impacted wisdom teeth. Now, it's not always necessary because some people have a jaw big enough and some people don't ever develop impacted wisdom teeth anyway. But for those who do, this is a significant problem. So, and there's also tendencies in different groups of ethnicity that were polled. 100% of the Hispanics that were part of this poll did not have these wisdom teeth. I don't know what the sample size was. I think it was just a couple thousand, but they sampled a widely diverse collection of demographics and measured who had wisdom teeth and who didn't naturally, and then they were tracing down who has this particular mutation. So, yeah, this is where we control our own evolution, and it would become something similar to the movie Gattaca.
Never seen
Great
that
movie.
movie.
I love it.
Actually, in the thought of genetics and mutation, what have you, one of the most interesting things I think came out of the Human Genome Project when they were coding the DNA was, and then going back and comparing it against that of the great apes, was the discovery that basically we have a gene that's incomplete. It's missing the T to the A or something along those lines. And if that were in place, we would have the musculature and the jaw that the apes have. But since that's missing, that allowed our craniums to grow larger, etc. And I thought that was one of the more interesting findings.
Yeah, there's also the myostatin mutation that causes people to have, if you get a double copy of it, then you will get the muscularity that you would have with a chimpanzee. And it's rare that this occurs in humans, and there's no detrimental side effect that I'm yet aware of, and certainly none of the cases that I've read about have had any detrimental side effect to it at all, because this is the way we originally were. We ended up with a diminished musculature because we didn't need it. But it's still possible for people to be born occasionally with that if, as I said, they get a double copy of this myostatin mutation.
How does that manifest?
Imagine a child with the muscularity of a man.
Wait, is that
Wow.
that baby that you had on foundational falsehood of creationism? That baby that looked like a muscle model?
There is a child like that, yes, and that example was on that video.
Yeah, that was the example.
But there's actually a few. That's just the best one that I could find an image for.
So you're telling, but is this in the family, or this mutation comes out, could just spontaneously?
It has to be a double copy, so your mother and father both have to have it already.
So they have to be muscular too.
And you have to inherit it from both of them. They can be musculature, but they can be well muscled. They can be naturally athletic. Okay, and you would expect that they would be, but they're not going to be chimpanzee muscles unless you get the double copy.
And they can't tear your face off and stuff like a chimpanzee could.
Right.
Yeah, they're not quite 10 times the strength of a man, but hey.
Exactly. But it is possible for people to have that kind of musculature. Now, the downside with it, what he mentioned in the jaw, is that, and I can't remember the name of this mutation, or what specifically it was, but it was a reduction in the heavy jaw muscles that envelop the skull. On gorillas and chimpanzees, the muscles go all the way over the skull and attach to the sagittal crest. Now, when you have the defect in that mutation, so that it doesn't develop these huge muscles overarching the brain cavity, then the brain is actually free to grow larger. And there's another regulatory gene that was a tumor inhibitor gene of some sort, that when that's defective and you have that compiled on this other one for the musculature on the jaw, you end up with encephalization, which is where the brain starts growing larger and the skull is able to
accommodate it.
Right. To accommodate it. So then we end up with these little wispy jaws, and we can't bite anything to save our own life, the way other animals can bite right through us. We can't bite squat that way. But we do have the brain that can make up for
So
it.
pretty much we're the brainy part of the bunch, while chimpanzees and apes and everything else went the brawny way.
Well, we're still apes, though.
Well, you know what I mean. But,
Yeah, when you use the word ape, you usually use it when you separate us. It's the same thing when you use the word animals. You talk about a comparison between humans and animals, but in fact, you do this with the awareness that humans are animals.
Well, yes. So
it's clarifying for anybody.
So pretty much this mutation that caused our jaws to get smaller and our musculature smaller caused our brains to get larger.
Yes. And as a consequence of having the jaws get smaller, this is where the wisdom teeth become an issue, because we still have the same number of teeth. We just don't always have enough jaw space for them.
I'm guessing the wisdom teeth were the teeth that we would have used to crush bone or something. Crush, Somebody wrote in the chat, our wisdom teeth are used to crush toe bones.
Well, when we started cooking meat and we didn't have to rely on vegetation anymore, then we no longer needed the massive biting and chewing pressure. And another reason that it's so hard to extract impacted wisdom teeth out of the lower jaw is because the lower jaw, this is unlike the other primates too, our lower jaws are adapted for speech. So they're capable of withstanding, they have a much, much higher rigidity. They're like concrete. You can pull wisdom teeth out of the top of the mouth relatively easy, but pulling them out of the bottom,
that requires breaking bone.
It is a lot harder because with the rigidity that we have in our jaw, which appears to be an adaptation to constant speech and the subtle minor vibrations required in that.
So pretty much, if you pull your wisdom teeth from the bottom, like I remember mine were taken out like 2 weeks ago. It hurts like hell, and they were the bottom ones. The possible thing I remember on the, sign this in case of, that thing. It says possible jaw damage. I'm like, does that mean I'm going to be wearing a brace for the rest of my life if something goes terribly wrong? So like our jaws are weak and fragile for speech, but they're not meant to be.
Well, they're weak and fragile for the biting thing, but they also have this high rigidity like fiberglass, which is for the minor vibrations required of speech, which means that our jaw is actually harder. I don't know how to explain this. It's certainly not armor-like, but it's hard like fiberglass-like.
It's tougher.
And that's not a good way to describe it either. I'll just leave it alone. It's denser bone.
Yeah.
It's lightweight but denser.
Got high tensile strength.
There we go.
That's the best way I would say it. Tensile strength.
Okay.
And also, the show's about to end, and we're going to have a 10-minute intermission for the after show. Thank you for watching the Line Go Show. And also, it's my birthday again, so tuning...
Your birthday again?
Yeah, I know. It's still August 11th. Yeah, but yeah...
How many of you...
I'm milking it for all it's worth. Yeah, but also, we're going to take a 2-week intermission, so tune in August 25th for season 4 to start. So see you then. Signing out.
All right.
Okay.